Zoom the recording, and then let's go to live to Facebook. Again, here's the magic. Such a great song. It's Wednesday, right? And I guess for us in the summer, it might not mean a whole lot anyways. So for those of you, whatever beverage you may be enjoying, cheers. All right. Oh, I don't want a wrong Facebook page. That's what happens sometimes. Let's try it again here, folks. I don't think my Kinder Rockets would not, I mean, maybe they'd like it, but stop live stream. Yeah, again, thanks guys for getting the chat going. Say hello to everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's always nice to hear your kind words. I find that for a lot of us, especially as teacher, we're always our own worst critics, right? So we keep going. We got a little visitor here in the background. How you doing, buddy? He's probably like, well, who's playing that music? That doesn't sound like Dad's music. Yeah, that's what I got. One of the things I won a little Echo, a little Echo for my kids have just been loving it because they can just play their own music. I refused to have a smart home for quite a long time, but we kind of went that way. All right, we're gonna go here live on Facebook again. Just a reminder that you really shouldn't be able to only see myself on that, and so don't worry about that. We're going to get started here. Again, a little bit of a soft entrance as people are coming in. We're up to about 29 participants. Last night we've had about 40, so maybe we'll get a few more. I don't want to start before they get there. Hopefully you guys are doing well today. It's always nice. Just again, I appreciate especially those friendly faces that are willing to turn your cameras on. I just love seeing your smiling faces, your dancing bodies, and you know, whatever your background is, right? As you've seen today, we're still in my bathroom. So welcome. I can put my virtual background up, but it's all right. Shout out Mission Park. Shout out to Natividad. Right, I know again, I'm going to still get it wrong. Monterey Park in the house. Yeah, finally. I know we got Monterey / Mission Park with Miss Tosi there. MLK's in the house. Martin Luther King Academy. I know we had Barden in the house. Miss Lopez. Anybody else, feel free if you want to give your school a shout out. We got Janet from El Gabalon, Santa Rita, University Park, Monterey Park. I will say one thing that's really been nice for us as an affiliate before we get started, and hello to people on Facebook, is the fact that it's sometimes hard to get to offer PD sessions that work for everybody's schedule, right, or the location. And so one nice thing I would say about virtual trainings is that you can be anywhere and you can still have access to it. So I guess that's one thing that I really love. So as you guys move forward, especially that you're here, just remember that you guys are Monterey Bay Q. It's not just us on the board, right? This is what we make it. So if there's more trainings that you want, let's do it. If you want to help facilitate those trainings through Monterey Bay Q, let's do it, right? You guys are Monterey Bay Q. So all you have to do is ask. You don't have to be on the board to volunteer. You don't have to be on the board to be a part of it. We're all volunteers. None of us are paid. We just like helping. And so everybody can access the session on YouTube. Yep. And everybody can you can get this session on Facebook. It's all free. We're not putting any walls up. So thanks again. Shout out to Santa Maria, Cindy. Shout out again to our master MC, Mrs. Jen Rogers, stepping out of the classroom this year. So Monterey Bay Q, and going to be a super supportive TOSA this year. Monterey Bay Q MBQ stands for Monterey Bay Q. And I said this a little bit yesterday, so I apologize if I sound repetitive, but it's okay. Repetition, I think, is good for a lot of us. Monterey Bay Q is an affiliate for Q, and Q as a nonprofit that has about 26,000 members across the country. There's even there's like a Mass Q, Massachusetts Q, and there's a Louisiana Q, and there's a San Gabriel Valley Q. And so each of these, the larger Q, which used to stand for Computer Using Educators, which has been around for 40 plus years, has been supporting technology, innovation in the classroom. They've been advocating for us in legislative student privacy, things like that. And so that is Q. And so Monterey Bay Q, we represent San Benito, Santa Cruz, and Monterey County. And we're just a group of educators that are here, voted on the board by the members to hopefully offer you guys support. So there's, I guess, our spiel, and hopefully that lets you know a little bit more about it. Our goal is always to be transparent with you guys and be available. And so we're always a work in progress, especially the president, that guy, right? So I guess I'll turn the music off. Alexa, turn the music off. And hopefully, you know what I should actually do? I should double check to make sure. I'm going to actually rebroadcast to Facebook. And here's the reason why. I'm going to start and stop. I apologize. Because sometimes if you're broadcasting, and sometimes we don't think about these things, if you're playing somebody else's music and it's in the Facebook feed, they will actually sometimes pull down your feed. So I learned this is one of the reasons I learned this is because I would stream ants on my Facebook page, which I mentioned, and I think in a previous training, I would stream ants on my page, and I had to find music that I was able to stream because I didn't want to just show ants. I wanted to make it an experience, right? And so again, so I'm going to restart it on Facebook, and I don't want that other feed to get pulled because Ben's blasting music in the background. So sorry about those, and thank you for your patience. With that, again, cheers. How's everybody doing this evening? You can just give me a thumbs up. You can drop it in the chat. I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I found out, like when I had at least a definitive answer that we were going to go remote instruction, I just felt a whole lot better and a whole lot anxious because I don't know, just that not knowing how to, I don't know, how do I keep kindergartners apart from each other for 3 hours a day, right? So let's see again. Sorry about that. Hello again on Facebook. We wanted to make sure you guys saw, so we did another feed without the music on there. And so here we are again, rewinding. You guys ready to get started now? I think most of us are in here. Okay. So again, here's day 3, and this is our parent engagement series. And I am going to minimize this. And so day 1 was creative communications. Day 2 was consistency and condensity. And day 3 is about really clarity and coverage. And it's really, I'm not going to really talk about new platforms. I'm just going to talk about giving some different spins on it. So again, this is me. Hi, everybody. This is my class, as you saw. I'll tell you a quick story. If you notice, I had these little rocket astronauts in the corner, right? So I have a buddy, and his name is Ed Campos. If you know him, he's awesome. Shout out to Ed. And so if you've seen his avatar on Twitter, I was like, I've always loved his avatar. And if you know anything about his little avatar, one of his students actually drew it with her finger on a phone. And so I said, I finally got connected with his former student that's about 20, I think she's like 22 now. And I said, you know, I would like you to do some clip art for astronauts for me, because I was having this problem and I kept looking at astronauts. I wanted to try to find some that look like my kids. And if you teach here in Salinas, a lot of my kids have kind of brown skin, right? And I couldn't find a lot that looked like them. And so I actually had her create a boy and a girl with about 3 different shades of skin tone in order to have them look more like my students. By the way, you're always more than welcome to steal those or use those. And I just shout out to her, and she actually did my drawing as well. And if you'd like me to put you in touch with her, she's awesome. So again, there's my family. We did this, and this is, again, drives this whole conversation, right? How are we changing with our times? We are a mobile society. We can run our lives. How many of you would agree that you could almost run your life off of your smartphone? Right? I mean, kind of. Well, for me, my schedule's in there, my bank's in there, I can deposit checks in there, my social media's on there, I contact my mom and dad on there, right? I mean, I don't know about you. When I misplace my phone, and maybe this is bad, maybe it's good, I'm always like, I feel like sometimes like, where is it? I need to find it, right? And some of it is because it's right now, especially it's the way we keep in contact with people. So it's how are our times changing? How is our communication changing? And I think I skipped a slide here. So day 1, we had creative communications. Day 2, consistency and condensity. And day 3 is about clarity and coverage. And I'm going to zoom down in my slides here to day 3. And we're going to have, again, that brief review that you saw yesterday, because I think that's important. There you can see the little doggy in the background, or you can hear. I already moved my slides on myself. This is what I do to myself all the time. I move my slides around and I reorganize them to try to get ahead of my game. There's day 1. So what should I do? I'm going to do Command F, and I'm going to look for day 3, because I just out organized myself. Day three, there's day three, woohoo! Command F for the win, right? Skimming and scanning, 21st century. So here's day three. As you can see, you know, technology happens to all of us. It's just how we deal with it. So day one, right? How can my communication become a part of my family's routines? And so we really talked about day one, thinking about using some other platforms, right? Like Facebook and YouTube. An interesting conversation I had with somebody at our district today. So we're expected to do live sessions from day one, right? From day one of when we start school. Does that mean they have to be live in Google Meet? I'm not sure, right? Like seriously, if I'm doing live sessions, can I get all of my kids in day one in a Google Meet as a TK or a kindergartner? Maybe, maybe not. But could I broadcast that to Facebook and at least say, hi, this is Mr. C. This is how you log in. I can always do both. There's ways you can do both, but it's just kind of thinking about some of those things. Hey, buddy.
Hi. Dad, how do you know the switch?
Not in the right time. Sorry. You can wave to everybody though. Okay. That's what happens, right? So there's the dog again under me. So day one, how can my communication become part of my family's? And again, we looked at this, right? 95% of Americans have cell phones. 81% of Americans have smartphones. 73% use YouTube, 69% use Facebook. So if somebody asks you, well, why would you start a Facebook page? And you can be like, well, I'm surprised you didn't know is about 70% of American adults have Facebook, right? Does that mean that as a teacher, you have to have a public facing Facebook page? Hey, buddy. Not necessarily, right? You can have a private Facebook page with just your families in there if that's what you're comfortable with. Day two, we talked about consistency and condensity, and this whole idea of not too much, not too little, finding that right balance in the middle. What's the right balance for your families? I don't know. We have to figure that out, right? I do think it's better to lean to sending a few too many messages than too little, right? And so that's, again, one of the reasons why we do things like start a Facebook and start a YouTube, because those are things that parents can access on their own, right? And they can find those hopefully in an easy way. And so day two, if you remember, this was the day two planner, and anybody that's interested, if you need that again, it's actually in the notes of the presentation and I can share it again. But it's just this whole idea of, and really thinking about planning ahead when we're sending out information, right? You got to think of what information do I have to share? When do I want to share it? Can I share it in one message, or am I sending it in 4 messages? If I can send it into one message, try to send it in one message. How often do I want to share it? Again, schedule. And this is this whole thing, getting a schedule, right? Schedule, right? We compared it to the news. The news, if the news was on at a different time every single day, you would not like the news. You probably wouldn't watch the news. You'd be like frustrated with the news, like, I can't even watch it because they don't even tell me when it's going to be on, right? But if you have that schedule, you're feeling good. You ready for day 3? Here we are to day 3. And sometimes, like, again, just taking a pause. So in day 3, we're thinking about how are you reaching your families? This is, again, this whole idea that if we just do one thing, even if we do one thing really, 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 really well, like I have a class dojo and all my families are in there, right? Am I really reaching all of the families, even if I'm doing it well? And so it's this whole idea of thinking about making sure we're really reaching them all. And it's not easy. It's not easy for me, right? I think about some other teachers that I do feel like when it gets on the phone, they call every night, they check in with the parents every night, you know, they're like, your kid didn't do their homework today, or, you know, just different things. And they do that. I couldn't do that just with my family life. So you got to figure out what works for you, but just being consistent and being on a schedule. All right. So this triangle may look a little familiar for some of us because it's like the PBIS triangle maybe, but let's just kind of go with it, and whether you have good feelings or bad feelings about it. So let's look at the coverage we have. So I think you should need to have a few different layers of your information that's going out. Your first layer is thinking about, and this goal is kind of like your 24/7 layer, right? You're posting public information and reminders and events that everybody can access at any time. So when I post things to Google Sites, or if I post things to my Facebook page, they're public and anybody can access them at any time, right? Like, uh, Class Dojo, if I don't have, or Seesaw, if I don't have that app downloaded on my device at the right time, can I access that information? No, right? But if it's on a website somewhere, can I access that from any device at any time? And here's where I'm going to give you a little bit of a pro tip. First of all, Google Sites it's a great tool. It's free to use. And I got to tell you, in college, we had to do a website project where I had to do some coding, and my website was so ugly. I got to tell you, it was really ugly. But in Google Sites, you can make it look pretty nice. Like it's a pretty slick tool that you can use, right? And so with that Google site, when you do that Google site, it's available 24/7 now. Okay, that's cool. I got a Google site. But here's my extra pro tip. One of the things you can do for about $10 a year is buy a domain name. Well, what's a domain name? A domain name is like an address for your Google site. So my domain name for my Google site is kindrockets.org. My domain name for my personal site is coachben.org. So a parent asks me about where can I find the information? Kindrockets.org. Where's your schedule? Kindrockets.org. You posted where do you post your videos so I can watch them later if my son misses class? You know what the answer is? Kindrockets.org. Isn't that, I could go there. So I went to a place, it's called GoDaddy. You might have seen, they've been around for years, and maybe you think about the race car ads. I always think about the ads are kind of a little bit racy, if you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, GoDaddy, you can go there and you can purchase your name. There's a few other places that you can go, but I just went there and I said, how much does coachben.org cost? $10 a year. And I can connect that to my Google site. It's actually not too bad. And that's a whole lot easier for me to tell parents. Kindrockets.org, 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 right? I don't need do you need a pen to write that down? Probably, but it's a lot easier to remember than something else. Would you guys agree with that? Like, it's easier for me to remember coachben.org, 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 right? That's a lot easier for it to remember. So it's this whole idea, that's the pro tip, having a public place that's outside of that that people can access. It also, remember we talked about yesterday, giving your classroom that public front, right? How do people know that you're not just sitting there all day drinking margaritas if you don't have some kind of public front? Because you all know we got those kind of comments, right? All right. So here's the second level. You're going to need to still send information and reminders out to families and groups. I don't know about you guys, especially if it's new to my routine, I appreciate a reminder like, hey, our Google Meet time is coming up in 15 minutes in the beginning, right? Some of those reminders I still appreciate. Or if I shared at 8:05 in the beginning, I'd send out my message, right? At 8:05, I'd send out my message and it would be, here's our agenda and here's your morning message. And I'd send that out. Every day they still got the reminder, right? Every day they still got it. Could they still get it on my Google site? Sure, because I figured out ways to package it. I'm all about, let's try to package things so that we can make them simpler for us. Let's use technology to make it simpler, right? That's what we use it for, to make our lives hopefully simpler. Sometimes it makes it worse, like when our Wi-Fi isn't working or we tell Alexa something and it doesn't listen to us, but that's okay too. That's just, again, what makes people good with technology is it's not the fact that it doesn't work for them, because it doesn't work for us all. It's how we respond to it. Finally, you're still going to need this level. You're still going to need one-on-one phone calls, emails, and house visits. But I guess part of my point is, if I'm posting a lot of stuff in a public avenue, right, and then I'm still sending reminders out to parents, how big is my chunk of this one-on-one personal time going to spend? Is it going to be less, or is it going to be more if I'm doing all these other things? My thought's that it would be less, right? Because I'm already being super consistent in other ways. So again, public facing information, Facebook, Google Sites, information sent out. It could be Class Dojo, it could be Parent Square, it could be Remind, right? A messaging app. And finally, we have those traditional methods. And if you remember, I showed you my postcards, right? That I custom printed out on cardstock. I made them in Google Slides and I sent them out. And that was my Flat Stanley project, right? Think about, if all our kids, I don't care what grade you're in, think if they got a postcard with your Bitmoji on it before school year started. Are you already building a relationship? And you know what you could put on that postcard? Hey parents, this is going to be my Google Meet times for now. Or hey parents, go to my website, kindrockets.org. Hey parents, you might not know me, but you can find everything at kindrockets.org, right? I feel like a little bit of a used car salesman, but we need repetition. We need repetition. As adults, we need it, right? And so we just got to be patient and just give it and make it simple. How can we simplify things, right? It's that excuse remover. So let's look at this in the same triangle and think about who is my audience, right? Oops, I think I went ahead. Oh, I didn't think I had it. So who is my audience on the bottom triangle, right? You got to think about that. Well, everybody is my audience. Like my principal's my audience, my school administrators. Because if I have something on Facebook or Google Sites and my principal wants to know what I'm doing outside of class, like anybody that they can look, as I said this yesterday, go to if anybody wants to know what I'm doing, just go to my Facebook page. If you have any doubts of me being busy, just go there. Right. That's why one of the reasons, honestly, even as a TOSA, when I was a TOSA, I would always post stuff to Facebook, to Twitter. Part of the reason is I didn't want people just think I was in the office all day. Right. So I made what I did public. Like, hey, I'm working with this teacher because I want people to know I'm just not sitting there all day. I'm out and about and I'm busy, just like as I'm a teacher. How do I let people I know that? Am I just like, sure, I could just do like sitting in front of a camera and just do that every once in a while and make it totally fake. But I think people, when they start to see like amount of stuff you might post or how often you're posting, they can tell, right? And even if you're just doing a website, put at the bottom, like updated at this time, updated at this time. So people can see a timestamp, even if you're adding that by hand. So who is the audience for that middle group? Really just your parents are the audience, or maybe even the babysitters, right? I always tried to get my babysitters in my Remind app because I felt like they probably sometimes needed to know the information more than the parents, right? Because the parents want to know it, but sometimes it's the babysitters that dropping them off at school, or the babysitter that needs to tell the parent that the folder's in the backpack. And so getting everybody that I can in that messaging app, right? For me, again, next year, I'm going to try to use Seesaw because that's where my students are going to be. I want to get my families there. Why? Because then it's one less thing for them to do. It's one less thing for them to check, right? And Seesaw translates it into Spanish. And so I'm thinking ahead, simplifying my life. And if it simplifies my life, guess who else's life it's going to simplify? My parents' life, right? So maybe it doesn't have to be Seesaw. If you're awesome in Class Dojo, use Class Dojo, right? Just pick your app and try to streamline it. If you're just going to use Google Classroom, get your parents connected in that way. But one of the downsides of Google Classroom is you can't message your parents, right? And so even it's just thinking about maybe it's at a school, everybody, and I know this is hard because sometimes as teachers, we have to give up things that we really like. But think about it, if everybody on your school is on one platform, and it's just the expectation. Like I know Salina City, the whole school district's on Parent Square. Honestly, that makes it a lot easier for parents because it's just like everybody uses Parent Square. The teachers post to Parent Square. Everybody's on the same platform. It simplifies it rather than, oh, your teacher's in this platform, your teacher's in this platform. So we gotta build these systems that make it easier for people. All right. And then who's your audience for that? The phone calls and the personal letters, right? And even sometimes think about it like, how many of you, I know some people did this, your kid would do really good in class, or you'd have a student and you'd send a positive letter home, right? Could we still do those things? Like, congratulations, your child learned the first tens of sight words. Hey, you know what, by the way, hey kids, if you learn this set of 10 sight words, I'm going to send a letter home. Some of it's being creative. So like I told my kids, I talked about my sight words for my kindergarten. I told them in my classroom that if they got 100 sight words and could show me that they could read them, that they could come and have a pizza party with Mr. C at lunch. All right. So can I still do that kind of thing for my families? Sure. I did have to spend a little more money. I got him a $10 coupon to Pizza Hut. I say, I'm going to be eating pizza at 6:00 on Monday in Google Meet. Here's the invite. Here's the pizza coupon. Please join me. I got 3 out of 4 families, or 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4. I don't remember. I have kids that learned all 100 sight words, even in distance learning. They were there, right? We got to think about creative. If it was engaging parents in the classroom, how can we engage the parents outside of the classroom? All right. Ready for this one? Let's take a pause for a second, and I guess we'll, if you have your coffee or your water or your shake, any questions that you have? Quick check-in with my, hello on Facebook, quick check-in with my camera people. How you doing? Good? Awesome. All right. So as I said, I didn't really show you anything really new today, right? I just kind of added some stuff from yesterday. It's just looking at it in a different way. So what about those parents like, and this is, I think, really important at the beginning of the year. How do we do parent trainings and events? And I'm going to provide you with a few different options. Some of you guys are already doing this. Well, the first option, I'm just going to put it out there, but could you still have a face-to-face meeting with parents? Well, sure. And maybe, right? Like, honestly, we talked a little bit about in our district, maybe for our younger grades, maybe meeting with 1 to 2 families at the beginning of the year every day and being able to get those TK or kindergartners in there. But what do we got to do, right? We, of course, have to socially distance and make sure we're safe. But in your traditional parent events, what are the benefits, right? It's a traditional parent event. You can easily monitor attendance and you know who's there. But one of the downsides is sometimes you get limited attendance based on the hour. And even I feel like even after we open up, I feel like a lot of even these, eventually, hopefully, knock on wood, when this thing passes by, who knows when, we could still have face-to-face events and offer them remotely, right? We can still do that in the future. We're already doing a lot of that anyways, and it gives people more access to us. So there's face-to-face events. I think most of you get that. What are our other options for parent trainings? Well, one of the things we can do is a pre-recorded video. And if you remember, I'll kind of take you back over there on my Google site. I talked about, I did a few video trainings that were pre-recorded. Part of the reason to make them pre-recorded is because what does it give access to? 24/7 access. They can go here. So some of these parent trainings, and again, I'm already thinking about this for next year and thinking about too, that if we have these as systems, like, wouldn't it be nice to everybody if everybody maybe was able to access Google Meet in the same way? So every teacher didn't have to maybe access their own video, but everybody just had one video that they could do it. Some things we have to give up and we got to be standardized so it's easier for parents. That doesn't mean that you can't still do your own content in your Google Meet your own way, right? It's this whole flexibility within the system. So you could see here again, these are the videos I did, and it was just a pre-recorded video. I think at this point, most of us in here, like even a lot of people just get creative. Go to the Zoom. If you know how to do this, go to your Zoom, share your screen, and record your Zoom, right? Even if you don't know how to use the other apps, most of us know how to do that. Go to your Google Meet, share your screen, record your Google Meet. Do your training. If you can do your own translations, even better. If not, I guarantee you that there's somebody out there that knows the language that can help you. Of course, in Salinas, it may be a little bit easier because we may have a few less languages that somebody like San Francisco and LA, right? That's a little more doable for us to find, translate our own stuff rather than having a lot of it. Although we do have more languages, right, than just 2, especially depending upon the school on the area. So you can see here again, these are just little trainings I did. Some of them are even just trainings from our ed tech department. And instead of having the parents go to the ed tech site, I just took their trainings, right, with permission, of course, and put them on my own site. It's not even my videos. It doesn't have to be your videos. If you like my video and you like my way to get kids into Google Meet and for login, just use it, right? It doesn't have to be your own. You don't have to recreate the wheel. But again, one of the ways that we're going to do trainings is we can record them and post them. Where can we post them? YouTube, right? Where could we post them? Facebook, or we just host them in our Google Drive, right? Would suggest, even if you host them in your Google Drive, where do you put them? On your Google site. Why? Because then when can parents access them? Anytime they want to, right? Does it have to be your video? No. So that's the whole thing. The only downside is I can tell you when I did it, I didn't, maybe I got about 2/3 of my parents that I think actually watched my training video. Did all of them do it? No. But again, when do we even get, think about, like, I feel like how many Americans vote? Like less than 50%, right? So I feel like if I can get 2/3 of my parents to watch a video, well, that's not bad, right? Is that where I'm going to stop? No. But I say that because we have to have a little grace for ourselves. We can't just always expect 100%, right? Some of us are perfectionists, right? We can't get there all the time, and we have to be okay with that, right? But does that mean we still don't try to communicate with those families? No. We just have to understand that it's not always our fault. Okay, so pre-recorded videos, good to go. Now here's, I think, one of the best ways I think and some of this depends on time, is this whole idea of just like we're doing. We're having a virtual meeting, but what am I doing to the meeting? I'm just recording the meeting. So you guys can be here. You get a little bit more of a face-to-face and a human connection. You can, we can chit chat if we want to. We can mute microphones. We can unmute them, right? You can participate in the chat. So this is probably my favorite model. And at the beginning of the year, I'll probably have like a few different open house times, which parents can come and they can meet me if they want to. Maybe that's on my Facebook page. Maybe it's in Google Meet. Maybe it's one day in one. Maybe it's one day in the other. But it has the benefits, again, to the face-to-face. I can monitor attendance because I can see who's here, and I can have the recording to watch later. So I mean, I just think about the hard part is in the beginning, getting your parents the link, right? Which is why I feel like in the beginning of the school year, it's going to be a lot of this. And that's where the postcards come in as well. Quick shout out to Edie Porter, who just snuck in. I don't know if she's here, but I know probably a lot of us in here, we all love Edie Porter, especially if you're a K-2 people. So anyways, hi, Edie. All right, so you got to think about which one works for the most coverage for the parents, but also think about one thing that works for you. For example, one of the reasons maybe not to do a virtual meeting is because, hey, we're spending, I don't know about you, it's hard to have this whole like teacher time where I say, I don't have 8 to 3. How many of you guys are working 8 to 3? Anybody here working 8 to 3? And that's why it's a little bit weird, right? Because I mean, I want to, and I feel like my district's been very respectful of that whole 8 to 3 thing in the contract. But realistically speaking, right, we're putting in more hours, but I'm not always willing to give up my evenings all the time. And I think that we also have to be okay with that as teachers. You know, we are teachers, we do have families of our own, and we do have to be respectful of that. And I know a lot of faces in here are willing to bend over backwards to call their parents, to be available 24/7 because you're here, right? But just remember that you got to pick which one works for you. If you don't want to do a virtual meeting with your families at night, do a pre-recorded video. It's not bad, right? Okay, pausing for processing. How we doing? Good? Again, do you see it? This third day, there's not necessarily a whole lot of new information, right? It's just really kind of thinking about the way we're doing things and why we're doing anything, right? And I had like Tiffany, I had one colleague and I wasn't comfortable with it, said she had a happy hour with her parents. And that was somebody, yeah. So I don't think I was, I don't think I would be comfortable doing that. Maybe I'm comfortable like having like some coffee and some conchas or something like that, or some, I would not do tequila and tacos though. I would stick with, that because I just am, that's, we got to make some separation. I still feel like with personal and professional, but even if it's just there, right? Or one night, just thinking about some ways you can engage your kids. It doesn't have to be every night. So one night I just did in a Google Meet and we just had a dance party. So I turned on my computer. I streamed some of the kids' favorite phonics videos. I have disco lights in my house because that's just how I roll. If I have two rainbows in front of my house, of course I have disco lights. Now I even have a fog machine, by the way. That's $50 on Amazon. You can get your own fog machine. But we set up a dance party at night, right? And that engaged the kids. So think about some of those things that you can do that you're feeling passionate about. Maybe you just do them every once in a while if it's at night. Yeah, bedtime stories, PJ bedtime stories, right? Those are great. If you can't do it every night, awesome. I just, as I've said, I'm already thinking about like some of my, we've done 130 days straight of read alouds. I'm not going to know if I'm not going to be able to continue that through the school year, but how can we start thinking about, again, providing some of those experiences and those connections, right? So definitely, and who knows, maybe we just start our own, anybody, by the way, wants to read their, my Kinder Rockets read alouds are open. So if you ever want to do a read aloud on my Facebook page, just send me a message and I'd love to have you, put you in charge of my social media ambassador, which is my daughter. Okay. So clarity and coverage, right? So clarity and coverage is really about having at least a few different avenues to post information, right? Parent Square is pretty good, right? And you got it all in there. So that would be your way that you'd send out information, right? But you also figure out, how do you have that public facing front? Is it a Google site, right? Is it a Facebook page? Is it a YouTube page? Pick one of those things, right? And it's fun. Again, YouTube it's very easy to post a live content to YouTube, right? They want us to be live. Well, I could do a live YouTube video. And again, that lives, that's something that students come back to and back to and back to. Parents can come back to. I would have one of my students that would actually, my morning message, which I posted to YouTube, he could access it in Seesaw, but his mom would often put it on YouTube because he got to watch it on his big TV, and there's a YouTube app on that TV, right? And so it's just thinking about where just some of these different ways that we can access it, right? If we have to do live with our students, again, can I do, I don't know. Does that mean I can do a live YouTube video and do some of those? I'm just not sure. Right. And like, and thinking about that. So what's play date? Bring all their favorite toys. And let me see. Is that question, Tiffany, for me, or is that for somebody else? I'm not sure. Oh, for Mary Carr. Yes, Mary Carr. My YouTube channel is public, and this is some other things for you to start to think about. I have two YouTube channels. I have my personal work YouTube channel, which is where I mostly post my teacher training videos, and I have my school YouTube channel. So here's some things just to think about. Technically, when you're creating content on a school device, do you know who technically kind of owns the content? The school. And so there has been teachers in different states and different areas that have created stuff on their school computers. I'm not saying this is going to happen here, and put it on teacher paid teachers and have made lots of money on it. And then you know what the school said? Well, you made that on our device, right? So that's one of the reasons you have to think about, well, if I'm making it on a school machine, it's probably something that my school, I put it on my school YouTube channel, right? And that's where my kids can answer. Just to give you an example, like here's, and we got to start creating some of these. If you go to this is my personal YouTube channel. And so on my personal YouTube channel, do I publish some of the same videos on there? Sure. But you can see a lot of my content is more for teachers. It's my content. But if I go to, let me see, what's the best way to get to my school Facebook channel, YouTube channel? Probably, sorry, I gotta zoom around here on my computer in it, so it might take it off your screen for a second. But my school YouTube channel is gonna look a little bit different. And part of that is just because you got, I shouldn't have probably done that. I forgot to save a seesaw activity. That's why I paused. I was working on a seesaw activity and I uploaded only a video and I forgot to save it. And then I went to YouTube. True story. Okay, but you can look here. If you look at my school YouTube channel, I put my school stuff here, right? So this is all specifically school stuff. Some of it's the same video, but again, part of the reason I just put school stuff here for kids is because it's easier for them to find, right? That's where we make a personal channel. You can even see my old Coach Ben icon here on my personal channel. On my new channel, you can see my new Coach Ben icon, right? And so some of this is we got to maybe start separating that kind of stuff and thinking about where you're going to post it and how is it to find. Because if I posted my school stuff to my personal channel, I feel like parents would lose it, right? But everything on my school channel has to do with kindergarten, with learning. There's number songs, right? There's lots of different things that parents can access. All right. That's awesome. So Mary Carr, you set up a time for them to play during your meet, right? So it's just that whole idea of engaging them, right? Making sure they're engaged on the other side of their computer. So thank you guys for, I love that back channel for those of you that are on Facebook. It's awesome. Sorry, you're missing out on that. Okay. All right. So here's the next thing. And kind of as we're wrapping this up, how clear is your communication with parents? Right? And so some of it is when I say that, well, how do we make it clear? Going back, sorry. How do we make it clear? Well, we think about, well, what is a schedule? If you have a schedule where you send out your messages, does that help make it clear for parents if they have a schedule that they can count on? Does it have to be daily? No. Maybe you just let parents know, I'm going to send it out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to send it out Sunday evening at 6. I'm going to send it out Fridays at 3. Just make a schedule for you and make a schedule for them. Because if they know when it's going to come, right, that helps get rid of this whole thing, right? How clear is my communication? Also, think about this. If your parents have questions, do they have a place to go? Well, if you have a Facebook page, or if you, more specifically, if you have a Google site, could they go to the Google site? And I talked about this. I did this training with a different group. You could put a frequently asked questions on your Google site, right? Especially if you're a school, right? What app are you using to communicate? Parents can log into app blah, 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 blah at this time. When does my child connect? If you need to find your teacher schedule, go here, right? And so Mary Carr, she teaches second, by the way. So having a place, if you have parents that have questions, can you create a space for them? Could it just be a Google Doc? Sure, why not? You also need to figure out a way parents can get a hold of you. Does that mean you have to give out your personal phone number? No, but honestly, I've always given out my personal phone number, even when I was a 6th grade teacher. And I, like, as a 6th grade teacher, I gave up my cell phone number, and about only out of 7 years as a 6th grade teacher, I only got 3 prank phone calls from my 6th graders. Does that mean you have to do that? No, but I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. But if you have Remind, Parent Square, as long as parents feel like they can get a hold of you. I just hate to hear these stories of parents that say, like, I don't remember whose board meeting I was listening to, whether it was in Alisal, Salinas City, or Salinas Union, because I'm working in one and I got 2 kids in the other, right? But one of the things I saw in the comment was like, oh, I asked a teacher, a parent, and then I never heard back from them ever. right? We have to make sure that parents have a way to get a hold of us. And yeah, I love that idea. Brunch with the teacher, right? Brunch with the teacher. That's easy that they can do. What's something they can do, right? And finally, how proactive are you being with sharing? Again, if you have a Google site, if you have a Facebook page, are you proactively sharing your schedule? We don't want parents to have to dig for our stuff, right? Because it goes back, we have to make it easier for parents. And that's a whole shift for us, right? We have to be co-teachers. I was just on a podcast um, on earlier and talking about this. And it's just like, if we're giving 3 hours to teach, we need to build time in our schedule to communicate with parents, right? And school sites and districts and even the state, in my opinion, they need to acknowledge this. We can't just teach all day on remote learning. They can't expect teachers to do that, because think about it. If I'm teaching for this amount of time today, I have to, most of the time, create lessons, because a lot of, as we know, a lot of our curriculum, it's not the easiest just to take curriculum lesson A and do it remotely, right? So I have to manipulate, adapt our lessons, and then we have to communicate with parents. If you have a schedule, build that into your schedule. So literally, this is what I would do when I kind of built out my schedule. And I don't think I put it in, I don't know if I have it in some training. I don't know if it was in this training. I think it was in a different training, but I literally looked at my time. And so I'd think about in my schedule, like, okay, I do my meet. And then every time after I do my Google Meet, I'd carve out a half an hour of time to communicate with parents. You have to put that in your schedule, or it's not going to get done. Do I think teachers should have to call every single parent every single day? No. Right? We need support. We need help for those things, right? When our kids were absent, what was the protocol for that? We got to have protocols. So we have to have, how many times does a teacher need to communicate to a parent or try that before we get some help, right? And what is the system of support building that help in? But again, if we're being proactive and we're posting all this information there, right, we're taking it away. Now, I will say, Julian, as far as Google Voice, I'm curious about that, because I literally just got a phone call today from Google, or an email from Google Voice that said calls will no longer be forwarded to this number. So I think I can still have a Google Voice. I'm not sure if I can still forward calls to my cell phone. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm not sure if it is still available. But there's lots of it, right? Google Voice, or even giving out I think that some of the school phones can actually be turned on so they could forward the school numbers to your cell phones, right? We just got to be open. If you use Facebook, could parents message you on Facebook, and you could turn your messaging app through your Facebook page on? Sure. I have my messaging app off for my Facebook, right? I know people that just text parents. Doesn't matter how you do it. Make yourself available. And I know it's asking a lot, right? It's asking a lot of us, and I acknowledge that. But as long as, this is the thing, building the time, right? It's a part of our teaching day. We have 6 hours of teaching day. How are we allocating that? We have to have planning time for our synchronous and asynchronous meeting, right? Because we can't just go in there and just make it up as we go. And so really schedule your time out and put it in a schedule and build it out and build that time in. Build that time into yourself. Say parent contact. Because then the other thing is, it's the level of accountability, right? If somebody says, hey, when do you contact your parent? If you have a consistent schedule, you could say, actually, every day between 11 and 11:30, I leave that time to call parents, right? And I know we're going to have parent logs, but just building that consistency in your schedule, I think it will help out for you as well. So yeah, Google Voice, sometimes the Google voice numbers are a little, or sometimes they come up as possible spam as well. So you just gotta try it. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes parents don't answer, right? And that's sometimes when we have to get creative and we have to send out the postcards, or we have to call them, or we have to try a different number, or maybe that's even leaving like a little care package in front of their house, if that's what we need to do. And we got to build that into our day, and we got to be okay with that. And I think school sites and people that are looking at us, we have to be okay with, they have to be okay with that as well. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to kind of wrap up. I'm going to give everybody, because we got another session at 6. You don't have to answer this question, but I want you to think about, what was your biggest takeaway? And as everybody says, as I say this to everybody, I'm going to say this especially to my Salinas people. I always make priority to the people that are closer to me. So think about it this way. Like, if I were to just have a triage, my grade level kindergarten team is going to get my first priority, right? My second level of helping people out is my school site. Shout out to Juliana. My third level of priority is my district. My fourth level of priority, guess what? is my city and my teachers that are here with me in the same neighborhoods teaching my kids, right? Because some of you guys in the past are either teach my kids in the past, going to teach them in the future. And so I'm here to help you guys. And so I say that is because reach out to me. I know I had a teacher that reached out to me yesterday and sent me an email. Hopefully that email I sent back to her helped her feel better. We also have a question and answer session with the Monterey Bay Q board members, and it's on Friday. And if I was more prepared, I like some of my other colleagues that have a slide that I can show you that. But it's on Friday, and it's just a Q&A session. It's an open time. We're also going to have a virtual affiliate meeting, and that's just literally kind of getting together because, again, we are Monterey Bay Q, and if you want to learn how to become more a part of it, we're just volunteers, and we're just trying to make it this time better for everybody. And I think the section at 6 today, I need to look at my notes. Should I bring them up? Let's check it out here. Again, when you guys are, when I'm sharing my screen, and maybe I'll say goodbye to Facebook for now. Everybody, they can't see you, but say bye, Facebook. Bye, Facebook. Thanks for watching. And I guess I will stop the recording as well. This is me right now. I'm on an hour to hour schedule today, and that's